Hi everyone. I wanted to do a quick video about the character sketches. I usually don't respond to the individual character sketches simply because, and I know that this was quite a while ago, simply because they're not substantive, So I can respond to the story, or if you had an idea in the character sketch you wanted to talk about in office hours, of course, But I thought that this might actually serve a better function. Excuse me. um, to kind of a way of thinking about fiction, because in fiction, it obviously operates much differently than in poetry, where in fiction, it's almost you almost want to think of it like in a movie where you have this scene by scene construction. Okay, now certain scenes can take place in different locations, but typically when you think of a scene, it's a fairly stable place in which the people are operating. So I was trying to explain this to a student the other day, and I thought maybe I would just re-explain it here because that way it'll help to kind of elucidate what fiction is supposed to do. Okay. So let's say the hypothetical I came up with was that let's say we have um, there's a woman, she's late to work. Okay. She gets up, she's in a rush, she rushes to work, she gets to work, got there on time. And, so her workplace is our first scene. Um, Now, as she's taking stuff out of her purse, she's, drinking her coffee, she takes her phone out of her purse. Well, it's her husband's phone. Oops, she grabbed it by mistake. Um, uh, and, she doesn't think anything of it. She just puts it down, oh, by mistake, I can't even call him and tell him that I have his phone. Um, so maybe an hour or something goes by, and what happens? He gets a text from somebody he maybe shouldn't. Maybe some mysterious lady. Maybe um maybe she gets nosy. And this is kind of, where your individual preferences come in. Like if you are the kind of person that would be nosy in that situation, like I said, have your character do the opposite of what you would do, and that'll help to kind of, motivate your descriptions of the character. So let's say that either way, it's going to end up at the same thing. In fact, my students, when I was talking about this, they said that often the people will use codes, like so they'll end like it'll be like Marco's Pizza or KFC or something. I'm getting a call from Colonel Sanders. Anyway, so she sees this text message come up and thinks, well, who's this? What? Why is Marco's calling? Or why is who's Angel? Who's that? She looks and reads through the previous thread if he hasn't deleted it, um, and finds out yes, her husband has been unfaithful. Okay, now one thing to think about when you're doing a scene is that during the arc of that scene, okay, from beginning to end, something has to change inside the character's life. Now, it could be in the mind, it could be in, the external factors like marriage, etc. But there has to be some moment of conflict that drives the scene forward because it's the point of conflict that's going to give you basically what's the next scene. Because if you had this scenario, she sees these text messages on the phone, and then What's the next natural scene? She's not going to go grocery shopping after this. She's not going to, she's going to go home and confront her husband, right? And so you see that there's a natural progression. There's an organic progression to this. So if you have this, if you're when you're writing fiction, especially first drafts, just think of this. What's the scene? What's the destabilizing event? Okay, that's your point of conflict. Now, sometimes it can be a minor one. You know, Someone goes to the store. She realizes that um, she forgot her wallet. Okay. There's a destabilizing now what's going to propel that scene? Well, maybe she thinks, oh well, it's just a pack of gum. I'm gonna steal it. She gets caught. Now circumstances have changed. What's the next scene? Maybe she's in the office of the manager, um, and whatever. It's whatever you want to do with that scene. Okay, but it's a way for you to think a little bit more structurally about the story, rather than trying to think like, oh God, how do I get a plot? Oh God, how do I get, what am I supposed to do with this character? Just write. Write and let your imagination move from scene to scene. Okay. So the next scene, after work, she drove home. It can be as simple as that. She drove home after work, or she drove directly to the store after work and bought a chainsaw. So I just put a chainsaw here, but probably she's not going to get a chainsaw. So he's at home, he's cooking dinner, whatever. Oh, hey, honey, what? You're a little bit late. Have you seen my phone? Have I seen your phone? I've seen Colonel Sanders send you quite a few racy pictures today. You. And then, now, so what's the destabilizing event here, right? Is the confrontation itself. Okay. Now, by the end of this, there's going to have to be some substantial change in her life, in her mind, whatever. Like I said, it can be a physical change, it can be a mental change. Um, Here, I mean, as a joke, she's chainsawing him to death. If you don't want to do that, you would still have to figure out, um, what's the destabilizing event. He tries to laugh it off. Oh, that's just my work colleague, or something. Ha ha ha. And maybe she throws a plate, out at the door. Okay. The next scene is going to be what? If it's not chainsaw, the next scene might be a lawyer's office. The next scene might be her talking to on later that night, talking to her mom or her sister or her friend, like, I can't believe it. I always trusted him, like we took a vow and blah blah blah. And so then, um destabilizing event, destabilization. Then, the sister, overcome with guilt, says, it was the angel is me. Dun dun dun. That's a little soap opera esque, but you see that it just helps to nudge the story forward. So instead of you trying to like invent scenario after scenario, like, oh God, what comes next? This is just a way to organically progress the story in a fairly easy way. So I want you to think of scenes. What's the destabilizing event that propels us to the next scene? Okay. What's the destabilizing event? What's the point of conflict? Next scene. And that's the arc of the story. Now, when you come back to do revisions and stuff, that's where you start to cobble in, more complicated plot types. So, maybe you finish the story and you think, oh, it's got to be more of a revenge. Okay. Or maybe it's a rebirth. Okay. Or maybe it's, whatever kind. She learns the power of forgiveness, by forgiving her husband. Or maybe she says, you know what? You cheat, I'm gonna cheat too. And she goes out and she um realizes that, ugh, I'm too old for dating, or oh, this is terrible, or oh, these guys are all morons, or whatever it be. So you see that realization, that change, right? She's doing something that's a point of tension because she's technically, not supposed to if she's married, because that would make her just as bad as him. But she says, "I'm so mad, I'm going to try it." So, but maybe she realizes something. So that realization is, once again, that's a change in her circumstances. So, like I said, these can be external, like the husband cheating. They can be internal, like her having an epiphany or realization later in the story. So they both work in the same fashion. They're a destabilizing tension or moment of tension. Remember that word we talked about, agon, right? Conflict. So this is one way of just really quickly building a story, setting up the story arc, and making sure that tension, conflict are the things that are driving the story forward. So, anyway, yes, I will be looking at your poems here um, shortly because I think they were just due today or yesterday. So I will be addressing those. So you will get feedback directly on those. Okay. Well, anyway, have a lovely evening, and I will see you all soon.